Hey everybody, it's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a different video for me here on the channel where I'm going to be talking about an alternate version of Definitely Maybe. Now we know it's the 30th anniversary of the classic Oasis debut album, Definitely Maybe. This year, the band is gearing up to release a deluxe edition of the record on August the 30th. It's going to come with some different versions of the record, the Sawmills outtakes, the Mono Valley outtakes, as well as a bunch of other stuff to celebrate 30 years of this classic debut album from Oasis. And I thought it would be a fun exercise, something fun to do here on the channel, a little bit of a looser thing to do here on the channel by putting together some alternate track lists for the Oasis album, Definitely Maybe. Now, we know this is a classic album, all 11 tracks and 12 if you add Sad Song in there, that all 12 tracks, 11 tracks of this album are absolute classics. There is really nothing you'd want to change about Definitely Maybe because it is simply a 10 out of 10 album. There is not a track that you would drop off, Definitely Maybe, at least in my opinion. But I thought it would be fun to poke into my iTunes today and explore some different versions, some alternate track lists for Definitely Maybe that could potentially make it even maybe a better album or maybe a worse album. Either way, I wanted to do this alternate track listing video of Definitely Maybe. I put together some alternate track lists that I think follow some different themes that I think could potentially maybe not replace the definitive version of Definitely Maybe, but maybe it's something that you can put together in your Spotify or iTunes to listen to provide an alternate listening experience, an alternate listening track list for Definitely Maybe and for Oasis. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here and I'm going to show you guys my Definitely Maybe track list that I put together. A couple of different versions that I think could make a cool listening experience for an alternate edition of Definitely Maybe. So what I have here is my iTunes. I know I'm so old school. I'm not even using Spotify in this video. I'm using my iTunes, which features my entire Oasis collection, and I've put all the Definitely Maybe tracks into this playlist called All Tracks. So as you can see, it has 23 songs on here, which includes the original Definitely Maybe album, as you can see from Rock and Roll Star, included here with the vinyl song Sad Song, all 12 tracks in here. But then I've also added in the B-sides, the studio B-sides from the Definitely Maybe era, including Take Me Away and I Will Believe from Supersonic, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman and Alive from the Shaker Maker single, Cloudburst from Live Forever, as well as the Cigarettes and Alcohol B-sides, I Am the Walrus, Listen Up, and Fade Away, going into the Whatever single. Now, I know Whatever came out after Definitely Maybe. It's not technically part of the Definitely Maybe album, but it's part of the Definitely Maybe era, so I've included it in this video just for shits and giggles because I thought it would be fun. So I have Whatever, It's Good to Be Free, and Half the World Away. So these are the tracks that I'm dealing with for my alternate versions of Definitely Maybe. These are all the studio songs, all the different songs that you're going to get from the Definitely Maybe era. So these are all the different tracks, and I put together what I call 4 different versions of Definitely Maybe. And the first alternate version of Definitely Maybe I'm going to show you guys here is what I call the B-side version. So it's still 11 songs, just like the Definitely Maybe track list from the original album, but I've replaced it here with a couple of really key songs that I think could have been really cool if they were on Definitely Maybe. So the album starts out on this B-side version, of course, with Rock and Roll Star, Shaker Maker, and Live Forever, which are 3 essential tracks from Definitely Maybe. But I've changed it up here, guys, on this B-side version of Definitely Maybe. In at number 4, instead of Up in the Sky, I've taken Up in the Sky off the track list and I've replaced it with Listen Up from the Cigarettes and Alcohol single. I think that is one of the best songs from the Definitely Maybe era. I know it's a song that a lot of Oasis fans know and love. So I've included Listen Up on this B-side version of Definitely Maybe with some of the B-sides, taking out some of the album tracks on Definitely Maybe. I've kept most of the hits from Definitely Maybe on this list, but I've taken out some of those album tracks. So Listen Up is replacing Up in the Sky on this version of Definitely Maybe. We're going to continue into Columbia and Supersonic, which I think are still essential for the album. And then we're going to take Bring It On Down. I know. I'm going to take Bring It On Down, which is actually one of my favorite songs on the record. I'm going to take it out of the track list. I'm going to replace it with Fade Away as the 7th track from the Cigarettes and Alcohol single on this version of Definitely Maybe, because I think Fade Away in general still has that really punky sound, that really rock and roll sound that Oasis is known for on that first record. So I think that Fade Away would fit in perfectly with the track list of Definitely Maybe. followed by Cigarettes and Alcohol. And then this is one of those songs that I had to include. I don't know where I would put it in the track list, but this is one of those songs that I had to include in this version of Definitely Maybe, and that is Cloudburst from the Live Forever single. I think Cloudburst it's a crime that it never ended up on the actual track list for Definitely Maybe. So you know what? I'm going to put Cloudburst in there. Not really sure where it would be in the track listing in general, like overall, but I think Cloudburst has to be in there because it's an essential track from the Definitely Maybe era. And then I put some other songs in here as well that I think that would fit the B-side version. So I've replaced Digsy's Dinner and Slide Away and Married with Children, the last three tracks from Definitely Maybe. I know it's a crime to take Slide Away out of any Definitely Maybe track listing, but I've taken that out and I've replaced it with a couple of different songs. I put It's Good to Be Free in there from the Whatever single because I think that would be a really cool song on the Definitely Maybe track list as well. Has a little bit more of that sound. And then I put I know this is a little bit of a wild card in here, but I put You Want to Be a Spaceman because I think in general, and I'll get to another track list here with more Null on it, but I think in general, Definitely Maybe is the only Oasis album that doesn't feature any Null songs on lead vocals. Of course, he wrote the whole album, he played all the lead guitar, but there is no songs on there other than Sad Song, which features Null on lead vocals on Definitely Maybe. So, I put You Want to Be a Spaceman in there just for shits and giggles on this B-side version of Definitely Maybe. And then I'm going to get to what I call the even rockier version of Definitely Maybe. We know that the original record, Definitely Maybe, is pretty much balls to the wall rock and roll right from the get-go. But I think if you added a couple of extra tracks in here, it could be even rockier than the original version. So we're going to start it out with Rock and Roll Star and Shaker Maker, of course, which have to be in there. Two great rock tracks. And then I'm going to put Fade Away in there as well. As I said, has that punkier, rockier side of Oasis, which I think feels really, really like in line with the rest of the Definitely Maybe album. Live Forever in there, maybe not as rocky as some of the other tracks on this record, but Live Forever is a bona fide classic, and I don't really think you can take it out of many different versions of Definitely Maybe. I put Cloudburst in here because again, that's one of the rockier tracks from the Definitely Maybe era. Having Cloudburst in there, I think makes it just an even better album. It's one of those songs I really want to hear on the Definitely Maybe track list, and through the power of making our own playlists and iTunes and Spotify, we've made that happen. Up in the Sky stays in there. Columbia obviously stays in there, but on this even rockier version, I put It's Good to Be Free in there as well. That's going to replace some of the other songs on here. I took Slide Away out. I know it's a crime. I took Married with Children out. I took Dixie's Dinner out there as well. And I added some more rocky tracks in there. It's Good to Be Free, Supersonic, Bring It On Down, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and Listen Up. You know what? If you wanted to get even crazier, if you're like, hey, let's put a cover on this, you know what? Take I Am the Walrus, put that in the even rockier version as well. Put I'm the Walrus somewhere in the track list. I know it's a cover song and an otherwise original song album, but you put bring I'm the Walrus song in there, and I think you have an even rockier version of Definitely Maybe, if that's even possible. And then we get to what I call the Null version of Definitely Maybe. Unlike every other Oasis album, other than Sad Song, the bonus track, which isn't actually on the original track list of Definitely Maybe, none of the songs on Definitely Maybe are sung by Null. I know that he wrote all the songs, but there's no Null songs where he sings lead vocals on Definitely Maybe. So I've made a Null version of Definitely Maybe, which features 13 tracks, clocks in at 1 hour and 3 minutes, features a lot of those essential songs from the record, of course, but then puts some Noel Gallagher love in there as well on the lead vocals. So if you're going to make a Noel version of Definitely Maybe, I would keep it primarily the same. Rock and Roll Star, Shaker Maker. Put in a little bit of Do You Want to Be a Spaceman because that's a cool song that you can put in that features Noel on lead vocals. Live Forever, Up in the Sky, Take Me Away from the Supersonic single, a beautiful song with Noel Gallagher on lead vocals. Like it's a very much a different kind of thing. If you put these Noel songs on Definitely Maybe, it puts more of this album in line with albums like Morning Glory and Be Here Now and Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, where there was more of that Noel Gallagher vocal representation happening on there. Columbia, Supersonic, Bring It On Down, Half the World Away, one of Noel's most beautiful songs that he played with Oasis from the Whatever single. I'm putting it on this Noel version of Definitely Maybe as well, because I think that would be a beautiful song to put on here. And then a couple other songs in there, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Slide Away, and then finishing obviously with Sad Song. And I think when you have the Noel version of Definitely Maybe, it's definitely a different vibe. It doesn't feel like the same album, but it almost puts it in line a little bit with those subsequent Oasis albums that featured more of Null on lead vocals. And I think this balances out in a way. I think this is a cool version of definitely maybe to listen to. I think of all these different versions that I put together for this video, I think this Null version would be the key version, the one that you really want to listen to if you're going to listen to an alternate version of definitely maybe. And then I get to what is called the whatever version of definitely maybe, which is definitely maybe if whatever was the lead track and the lead single off the record. Obviously, whatever came out in 1994 was a Christmas single, came out well after the release of the definitely maybe record. But I think this would be really, really cool. So this whatever version of definitely maybe, I'm going to kick it off, obviously, with whatever, which I think is a great song. It doesn't have the same rock vibe as the rest of definitely maybe, but this is the whatever version of definitely maybe. We're going into whatever and then keeping things not necessarily balls to the wall rock like the original version of definitely maybe, going into listen up, live forever. Of course, it's good to be free because this is the whatever version of the album, so we have to put it's good to be free in there. Up in the sky, half the world away, I will believe, which I haven't put on any of the other editions of definitely maybe. It just kind of varies things up a little bit. It's not as much of a rock and roll album. This version of the album is a little bit more lush, has a, you know, the strings of whatever, has a little bit of the different vibes of I Will Believe and Alive in there as well, the 8-track demo. And then I think for the rest of the album, the whatever version, we're going to continue some of the songs that maybe fit more within this vibe. We have Dixie's Dinner, Slide Away, Married with Children, and Sad Song on the whatever version of definitely maybe. So what I've done is I put together 4 different versions, 4 different alternate track lists for definitely maybe. I put together the B-side version, which features some of those B-sides that came from the definitely maybe singles, as well as the whatever single, which I feel these were great songs. Oasis had that problem. They put so many great songs on B-sides when they could have been on albums, and this is the version of definitely maybe that I feel could have had some of those B-sides on it and made it a different kind of album. The even rockier version of it, which obviously definitely maybe is pretty rocky as it is, but the even rockier version of it with Rock and Roll Star obviously on there. But then you had songs like Fade Away, I Am the Walrus, Cloudburst especially is a song that I've been wanting to put on there. You can see the kind of the pattern that's happening there. The even rockier version, and then the Null version, which features more of Noel Gallagher on vocals on definitely maybe, because obviously the original version doesn't feature any Noel on the album whatsoever. So I've made a Noel version of definitely maybe where he sings a bunch of the different songs, and it really gives it a different kind of vibe that is more in line with some of those later Oasis albums that were more of a balance of Noel and Liam and their styles. And then getting into the whatever version of definitely maybe, where we have whatever being the lead track and the lead single off the album. What would that album have sounded like if whatever was put on definitely maybe? Well, this is maybe what it would sound like. So let me know, guys, in the comments, which of these different alternate versions of definitely maybe would you want to listen to? Would you want to check out? And which alternate track list would you put together of definitely maybe? Let me know in the comments below. I thought this would be a kind of a fun, different experimental kind of video to do here on the channel. So let me know if this is something that you dug. Maybe I should do some more alternate Oasis track lists in the future, but let me know what you think of this as alternate track listing for definitely maybe. Make sure to toss me a thumbs up. Appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe here on the channel so you don't miss out on future videos, and make sure to follow me on social media at Nick Chino Music across platforms. But I'll see you guys again for another video here on the channel. Until then, rock on, everybody.